The movie theater, a slowly dying format of media consumption, a pandemic, 20 billion streaming services at once, and other ways to access movies online have all taken its toll on this once powerful pastime. Despite things looking grim though, there might be a glimmer of hope. If there were just a certain blockbuster movie exclusive to theaters, one with a titular main character, brilliant set pieces, an intriguing story, all that combined, maybe the movie theater could be revived. And in 2021, that happened. Towards the end of the year, we finally had the long-awaited release of Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. The first movie to sell 1 trillion tickets. Okay, I'm sure by now everyone's seen all the memes about this movie. But where did this come from? What started all of this? This fake or partially real hype behind Venom 2, and eventually a certain other movie, which we'll get into. Well, I personally saw this movie and I didn't think it was that bad. It was okay. I mean, a lot of people say it's bad, which is kind of understandable, but it was one of those run-of-the-mill superhero movies that you'd expect. It wasn't really great, it wasn't really terrible. I think a lot of the criticisms with this movie were overblown. I mean, I didn't go in expecting some masterpiece of cinema or whatever, although to be fair, that is what I got. Yeah, but seriously, there were some cool things, there were some awful things, and of course, a post-credit scene that'll make you soy jack so hard that your jaw dislocates. God, I love cape shit. And that's exactly why this movie got so popular. So let's do a little bit of history. Venom 2 was supposed to come out in late 2020, but of course, something pretty bad happened that year, and like most other things planned for that year, it did not pan out at all. Fast forward nearly a year, and then a month with another delay, and finally, the public has been graced with Venom 2 Let There Be Carnage. Basically a full 12 months after it was supposed to come out. It had a pretty mixed reception, even more so than the first. And it's not like the movie was a failure either, it actually did turn a profit. Granted, it didn't sell 1 trillion tickets like we expected, but it did do pretty well considering the delays and such. And even though it wasn't the cultural reset that we expected, it was a step in the right direction, and it was an omen for a movie that was about to come pretty soon. Okay, now picture everything that I just said. A movie with a level of ironic hype, but also some real hype behind it. A movie with delays due to the pandemic. A movie where some people only cared about it solely because of how it's connected to the multiverse. And most importantly, a movie that had the potential to sell 1 trillion tickets due to being an immense quality, cultural reset of a movie. All these factors applied to Venom, but also another film. Actually, it applied more so to this other film more than it did to Venom. Of course, Venom's compared to some of the greatest movies of all time. It's up there with the classics. But this movie makes Venom look like child's play. I know, that's not something I should say lightly, but it's true. But you could probably tell what movie I'm referring to already. You'd be stupid to not know it. Morbius. The birth of a brand new Marvel legend. A cape shit film starring Jared Leto. We've had a great track record with those, haven't we? 2 for 2, maybe third time's the charm. So this film was actually delayed, and it's kind of funny looking back on the delays because, again, it makes Venom's delays actually look pretty normal in comparison. This movie was delayed not once, not twice, not thrice, no, 6 times. Yeah, it was actually slated to come out before Venom 2 even. Audiences were supposed to be graced with this beautiful movie even before Venom 2 came out. But then it got delayed, and then again, and then again, and again and again, and that leads us to where we are today. Finally, almost 2 years later, this cultural reset is here. And as expected, it was amazing. It was the greatest movie ever. Everything about this movie created the perfect storm. Look at what happened with Venom and how people made memes about that. This was an actual bad movie. Venom, it was just kind of a mixed reception. And there are people that actually do like Venom. I actually did like Venom too. But then this movie, it was clear that this was gonna be a shit show. And just like any other shit show of a movie, people pretend it's great. But this time, it happened to a much greater extent. So all those memes about Venom being the first movie to sell 1 trillion tickets and such, or being some sort of cultural reset, apply that all to Morbius. Everyone thought this movie was going to be a failure, but then there was a section of the internet that actually thought opposite. This would be the best movie ever. Of course, it was all done for jokes, but some people actually did this seriously. There are even people that are trying to draw up hype, which ended up leading into more memes. One of the funniest parts about this movie that I think is that everyone knew it was going to be a failure, and I guess in an effort to get people to see this movie, even the director spoiled the post-credit scene, which, if you know any Marvel movies or whatever, you know that the post-credit scenes are probably some of the most important things that draw audiences in. For better or for worse, mostly the latter. But the director here, he didn't even care. He just told us straight up, yeah, Vulture from the MCU, he's in this movie. And no one even cared. It actually made people think the movie was worse, if anything. So, how did this movie perform? Well, opening night, theaters were empty. Usually opening night, if it's a good movie, it's really hard to find a seat. Hell, sometimes this even lasts for a week or so. But with Morbius, you could basically just walk in. Some of the theaters didn't even play it properly, like they would keep the lights on while the movie was playing, they'd play the wrong movie, stuff like that. But despite all that, the fans were confident. This movie would be a sweep. This was the beginning of a new cultural reset, the Morbius sweep. It would truly be the first movie to sell 1 trillion tickets, the most profitable movie in existence. It would make Spider-Man No Way Home, Avengers, Avatar, all those movies, it would make them look like nothing. This would be a true box office success. Hell, there was even a Discord community for it. A community so involved with this movie, a movie they love so much that there was a server dedicated to just talking about this solo film, this new Marvel legend. The hype was at its peak. Even The Batman, which released a few weeks earlier, that movie would just be destroyed by Morbius. So how did Morbius actually perform? Well, the answer is actually kind of surprising. So it didn't sell 1 trillion tickets like we expected. But it wasn't a complete failure. I think it's partially because of all this fake hype generated around it that people actually went to see it just to see how bad it was, or because they actually thought it might be good. No one really knew. And that curiosity is what led people to actually buying tickets, which is funny when you think about it. These memes, these stupid jokes online, they're actually more effective than any of Sony or Marvel or whatever's marketing. Besides the fact that it's Marvel and someone from the MCU is in it at the end, no one would really be talking about it if it weren't for all these jokes about it. Hell, it might have been a flop. Maybe all these memes about the Morbius sweep actually made it happen. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Of course, this is all just a theory. I don't know what actually caused the ticket sales. But it's reasonable to assume that what I'm saying might have some truth to it. Morbius is an interesting case, exploring how online communities can emerge from pretty much anything and their impact. Sure, a lot of the hype around this movie was ironic and played up for giggles, but it's actually pretty incredible how big of a community there was for this. The memes, the discussion, the perception of the movie were all affected by the internet more than the actual marketing or the movie itself. Some people screwing around on social media overcame corporate marketing, having a bigger effect than it could have ever had. And that's truly something interesting. It's a shame the movie sucked though. But now that leads us to here. What's next? Is there another cultural reset? Maybe a new movie that'll sell 1 trillion tickets? Well, that remains to be seen. For now, we have these two masterpieces, Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, and Morbius. One can't even imagine what kind of great movies we have coming up ahead. And one day, we will truly have that movie that sells 1 trillion tickets. Thank you all for watching. #Morbius sweep, baby!